Meet Du Ming, your average high school student, just trying to get through the day. He's a simple guy, perfectly happy in his own little world with his music. His life is all about anime, games, and keeping things comfortably simple. But that ordinary routine was about to be flipped on its head. It all began with one fatal mistake, letting his curiosity get the better of him. Drawn by strange sounds, he finds himself at a supposedly abandoned construction site. He's puzzled, thinking this place was shut down a long time ago. Unable to shake his suspicion, Du Ming hoists himself up for a peek over the wall. The sight that greets him is an unbelievable, earth-shattering spectacle. Two brilliant blades of pure energy collide in a flash of light and power. The battle rages on, with a blast of energy streaking across the night sky. Her eyes are cold steel, her glowing blade ready for the next move. His fiery spear cuts through the air, a blur of pure destructive intent. Their weapons meet in a symphony of light, shaking the very foundations of the site. He unleashes a devastating strike, but she's a phantom, already out of harm's way. The surrounding structures can't handle the pressure, exploding into a shower of rubble. With every clash, the ground itself groans and shatters under their immense power. Du Ming's hiding spot starts to crumble, threatening to expose him to the chaos below. A mysterious glowing pendant hangs around her neck, pulsing with an unknown energy. The man, now at a disadvantage, demands she surrender the box in the name of the Ark. She scoffs at his demand, insisting the fairy must choose its own partner. He mocks her ideals, disgusted that she would treat a fairy like a human. Unfazed, she calls him a corporate stooge, completely unworthy of judging her. Her words strike a nerve, sending him into an absolute rage. Done with talking, he launches himself forward in a devastating lunge. His spear transforms, unleashing a massive pyramid of pure destructive energy. She stands her ground, bracing for the overwhelming attack heading straight for her. Meanwhile, Du Ming decides he's seen enough and makes a clumsy dash for safety. His escape plan fails spectacularly as he loses his grip and tumbles down the wall. Landing hard, he looks up in horror as the structure comes crashing down right on top of him. This is it, the end of the line for our curious hero. But the battle rages on, completely indifferent to his fate. Igniting her boosters, the woman rockets across the ground, a comet of blue light. Her opponent roars, refusing to let her get the upper hand. He hurls his spear, unleashing a blinding wave of pure force. The devastating attack connects, and for a moment, it looks like she's down for the count. Meanwhile, another witness to the chaos is having a full-blown panic attack. A stray blast nearly takes his head off, forcing him to duck for cover. But he's already been spotted by a strange purple device that takes aim. With nowhere to run, he takes a direct hit from the mysterious projectile. The projectile's energy surges through him, his eye glowing an intense, painful purple. This sudden explosion of power catches both fighters completely off guard. He's racked with agony as the mysterious purple force violently courses through his body. At this moment, he's adrift in a strange void, accompanied by a luminous butterfly. His simple, ordinary life has just been shattered into a million pieces. Screaming, he unleashes a blinding flash of raw, untamed energy. The woman realizes the unthinkable. A fairy has just initiated a bonding process. In a flash, the energy solidifies, rapidly forming a protective cocoon around him. Her opponent can only stare in disbelief, demanding to know what's happening. Now, a new prize hangs in the balance, pulsating with untold power between the two warriors. The furious warrior summons his weapon, his arm blazing with raw power. Responding to his call, the fiery spear rips itself free from the shattered concrete. With his weapon back in hand, its crimson energy crackles, hungry for another strike. He glares at the cocoon, vowing to destroy the boy for stumbling into their fight. A voice urges Ayla to intervene as the man unleashes a devastating attack on the helpless target, but she refuses, sensing something unusual about the cocoon's energy signature. Her companion is stunned by the implication. This could be a legendary first-generation fairy. Even Ayla can't be certain, her expression a mix of shock and intense focus. Her ally realizes their opponent's ignorance is his undoing. He has no idea what he's truly attacking. The cocoon is engulfed in a blinding explosion, its fate hanging in the balance. The warrior is stunned. His attack barely scratched the surface, making him question the cocoon's insane durability. Annoyed by this setback, he decides it's time to get serious. He gathers every last bit of his fiery energy for one final, devastating blow. Leaping high above, he unleashes a massive, swirling inferno down upon his target. His own body begins to transform, sacrificing its form for pure, unadulterated power. With a crazed grin, he challenges the cocoon to withstand his ultimate attack. Ayla watches in alarm, realizing he's pushing his body past its breaking point. He lets out a final, earth-shattering roar as he pours everything into the strike. Becoming a living meteor, he plummets towards the ground with unstoppable force. The impact is catastrophic, shattering the battlefield in a blinding flash of fire and energy. The voice in Ayla's ear panics as the cocoon shatters, but the attack is harmlessly deflected. Ayla, however, remains completely unfazed, calmly predicting the outcome. From the wreckage, Du Ming emerges, his body now covered in strange, glowing markings. His opponent can only stare in utter disbelief, his mind failing to process the scene. A razor-sharp crystal of pure purple energy materializes from the swirling chaos. The ordinary high school student is gone, replaced by a figure crackling with immense power. Ayla's ally recognizes the legendary energy signature, his voice trembling with shock. This isn't just any fairy. It's the legendary Queen of Thorns, the strongest of its kind. Behind Du Ming, a colossal phantom of thorns and power takes shape, dwarfing the battlefield. The fiery warrior grits his teeth, his shock turning into pure, unadulterated rage. Before he can even process the transformation, a blur of purple energy rockets towards him. The warrior is stunned by the boy's impossible speed, barely able to react. Du Ming's crystal blade slams into his defenses with overwhelming force. He's sent flying, his body unable to withstand the raw power of the attack. The once mighty warrior can only scream as he's completely overpowered. He looks up in horror, finally understanding the terrifying power he's provoked. Their battle becomes a clash of light and shadow, tearing the sky apart. Du Ming moves with an unnatural grace, completely in control of his newfound abilities. His opponent is on his last legs, his power boost about to reach its limit. Meanwhile, Du Ming stands transformed, a calm and deadly master of the battlefield. His eyes burn with defiance, refusing to accept his crushing defeat. The warrior glares across the ruined landscape, locking eyes with the calm and collected Ayla. Realizing he's outmatched, his rage turns into a bitter promise of future revenge. With a final threat, he makes a strategic retreat, rocketing into the night sky. Ayla watches him flee, her ally confirming the immediate threat is finally gone. As the enemy vanishes, Du Ming's immense power begins to recede, leaving him vulnerable. The adrenaline fades, and the toll of the transformation hits him like a ton of bricks. His vision blurs, the world warping as he struggles to stay conscious. The last thing he sees is a sliver of the battlefield before his world goes completely dark. Ayla catches the collapsing hero, welcoming him to a world he never knew existed. He's now just a stranger in her arms, a boy who stumbled into a war he didn't understand. His unconscious mind is flooded with chaotic visions of wings, horns, and raw power. A mysterious voice echoes in the void, formally inviting him to the world of the fairies. But the next morning, it all feels like a bizarre dream as his alarm clock rudely awakens him. With a frustrated crash, he silences the annoying buzz, ready to start another normal day. Waking up feels like recovering from the world's worst hangover, a scratch on his nose the only souvenir. His first groggy thought is for his glasses, completely forgetting the night's impossible events. Stumbling to the bathroom, he prepares to face another day of blissful ignorance. A glance in the mirror makes his eyes go wide with sudden, shocking clarity. He stares at his reflection in disbelief. His vision is now a perfect 20/20. Adding to the morning's weirdness, he notices a faint trickle of blood from his nose. His alarm clock didn't survive the morning. Its screen shattered into a glitchy mess. The broken clock means one thing. He's massively, catastrophically late for school. On his way, he spots a news crew reporting on last night's huge explosion at the construction site. The entire area is a disaster zone, but miraculously there are no reported casualties. With no time to gawk, he barrels right through the live broadcast in a desperate sprint. He's never run this fast in his life, fueled by pure, unadulterated panic. The school gates are closing, but he slides through just in the nick of time. He bolts up the stairs, finally reaching the door to his classroom, 2-3. His teacher is less than thrilled, welcoming him with a threat of a week's worth of cleaning duty. A classmate teases him for daring to be late to the most feared teacher's class. Du Ming brushes it off, blaming a rough night and a massive headache. But then, a sudden jolt of memory makes his mind go completely still. The impossible events of the previous night come flooding back in a tidal wave of shock. His friend is completely oblivious, wondering why he's suddenly frozen in place. Unfortunately for them, their little chat has attracted some unwanted attention from the front of the class. The teacher unleashes a piece of chalk with pinpoint accuracy to enforce classroom silence. His friend is instantly knocked out, leaving Du Ming alone with his chaotic thoughts. Later, during a break, the seemingly normal school day feels anything but. His friend finally asks the million-dollar question, What happened to his glasses? Du-ming plays it cool, claiming he looked for his glasses but couldn't find them. His friend is completely baffled, questioning how he even made it to school. Their conversation is cut short by the chaos of a PE class soccer match. A player winds up and unleashes a powerful kick, sending the ball flying. The soccer ball becomes a speeding projectile, rocketing across the field. It's a wild shot, soaring way off target and heading for the sidelines. His friend bursts out laughing, but Du-ming tells him to shut it. Suddenly, the stray ball is hurtling directly towards Du-ming's head. With lightning-fast reflexes, he snatches the ball out of the air with one hand. He's shocked by his own speed, realizing he caught it with his non-dominant hand. His friend is completely losing it, questioning the source of his newfound power. Their moment is interrupted by a girl calling out to his friend from across the track. The friend makes a hasty exit, promising to call later as he runs off to meet her. Du-ming is left alone, completely unbothered by his friend's sudden departure, but his quiet moment is shattered by the sound of aggressive barking. A ridiculously angry-looking dog appears out of nowhere, baring its teeth. Before he can react, the tiny terror lunges forward and sinks its teeth into his hand. The little beast latches on, refusing to let go of its new chew toy. With a frustrated shout, Du-ming finally manages to fling the dog off his arm. Staring at the bite mark, his first thought is the hassle of getting a rabies shot. But as he stares at the bite, a sudden shocking realization hits him. The wound vanishes before his very eyes, healing in a matter of seconds. He's left staring at his perfectly fine hand, his mind struggling to comprehend the impossible. Back in class, he can't shake the feeling that last night was more than just a dream. He desperately tries to recall the details, but his memory is a frustrating, blurry mess. Perfect vision, insane reflexes, and now rapid healing. His normal life is officially over. His train of thought is derailed when the teacher announces a new transfer student. The classroom erupts in whispers as the beautiful new girl makes her grand entrance. But it's the glowing butterfly pin on her uniform that makes Du-ming's blood run cold. While his friend is completely captivated, Du-ming recognizes the face from his nightmare. His friend tries to snap him out of it, completely clueless about Du-ming's internal meltdown. Du-ming's face is a mask of pure, unadulterated terror as the memories hit him. The new girl introduces herself with a polite smile, completely unaware of the chaos she's causing. His mind flashes back to the brutal, otherworldly battle at the construction site. The warrior from his nightmare is standing right in front of him, and his brain can't handle it. She introduces herself as Ayla Clemens, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to his inner panic. The rest of the class is instantly captivated, their hearts turning into cartoonish shapes. Ayla glances over the room, easily taking in the scene of adoring classmates. The teacher's booming voice cuts through the commotion, demanding order in his classroom. With a slightly creepy smile, the teacher offers her a prime seat right at the front. But Ayla politely declines, requesting a seat directly behind Du-ming instead. Du-ming is completely baffled, wondering why on earth she'd single him out. The teacher is just as confused, demanding a reason for her strange request. With a dazzling smile, Ayla drops a bombshell. She claims Du-ming is her cousin. Du-ming's soul practically leaves his body as he processes the blatant lie. His friend, however, sees this as a major, life-changing win for Du-ming. The rest of the class immediately swarms him, demanding to know why he kept his cousin a secret. The teacher buys the story completely, waving her to her new seat without another thought. Every step she takes towards him feels like a countdown to his impending doom. Leaning in close, she confirms his worst fears, noting his recovery from the after-effects of last night. She leans in closer, asking if he's finally remembered their little adventure. Du-ming plays dumb, insisting he has absolutely no idea what she's talking about. He tries to ignore her, but the warrior from his nightmares is now sitting right behind him. Ayla's ally is shocked by his rapid recovery, noting it took Ayla 3 days to get her memory back. She's more interested in his perfect compatibility with the Queen of Thorns, knowing a world of trouble is headed his way. Ayla decides to postpone the interrogation, promising a little chat after class. The moment the bell rings, a classmate makes his move, trying to get her number. But another girl isn't having it, immediately shutting down his pathetic attempt. Soon, Ayla is completely surrounded by a crowd of adoring new fans. His friend can only watch in amusement, teasing Du-ming about his suddenly popular cousin. Du-ming's friend turns around to find he's vanished, leaving only a cartoon-shaped hole in reality. He finds Du-ming hiding outside, offering a drink to his clearly freaked-out buddy. Du-ming waves him off, trying to process his new insane reality all by himself. His friend isn't buying it, pressing him to spill whatever's got him so spooked. But Du-ming shuts down, insisting everything is totally, completely, unbelievably fine. He knows it's not a coincidence. His life has officially become a high-stakes comic book plot. His friend snaps him out of it, pointing out that his so-called cousin is nearby. Across the field, Ayla is already the center of attention, turning heads in her PE gear. She effortlessly ties up her hair, looking less like a transfer student and more like a supermodel. But as she prepares for class, she suddenly pauses, sensing an unfamiliar gaze. Du-ming is snapped out of his trance by his friend, who urges him to get a move on. The PE teacher announces a surprise fitness test to select students for the upcoming sports meet. He orders the class to split up, separating the boys from the girls for the test. But the teacher is immediately confused by an unexpected addition to the boys' lineup. Ayla has casually joined the boys' team, much to the teacher's surprise and the other guys' delight. With a look of pure confidence, she tells the teacher she's exactly where she wants to be. The first event is the 100-meter sprint, and Ayla takes her position, ready to dominate. The whistle blows, signaling the start of the race and the beginning of the chaos. Ayla explodes off the starting line, leaving the teacher completely dumbfounded by her impossible speed. Du-ming watches from the sidelines, his expression unreadable as he witnesses her superhuman abilities firsthand. She blazes down the track, a blur of focused intensity leaving everyone in the dust. Ayla crosses the finish line in under 10 seconds, shattering the school record without breaking a sweat. Her classmates can only stare in disbelief, questioning if her speed is even humanly possible. Next up is volleyball, where she leaps into the air for a devastating spike. The ball slams into the court with explosive force, leaving the opposing team completely stunned. Du-ming, however, is trapped in his own head, trying to piece together the puzzle of his new reality. Even in table tennis, she's an unstoppable force, casually using a ruler as a paddle. Her opponent is left completely baffled, unable to even track the ball's impossible trajectory. The scoreboard flips wildly as Ayla scores point after unanswered point, much to Du-ming's growing anxiety. The final score is a perfect, brutal shutout, 11-0. Word of Ayla's superhuman feat spreads like wildfire, but Du-ming isn't sticking around for the gossip. He bolts after school, trying to put as much distance as possible between himself and his new cousin. But a paranoid glance over his shoulder confirms his worst fears. He's being followed. A hand suddenly stops him in his tracks, and his escape plan comes to a screeching halt. Convinced he's about to be vaporized, Du-ming completely loses his cool. He resorts to the only defense he knows, begging for his life with a series of frantic apologies. But as he peeks up from his bow, he realizes he's not facing an executioner. It's just Ayla, greeting him with a friendly wave that does nothing to calm his nerves. Later that night, Ayla's butterfly pin begins to pulse with a brilliant, otherworldly light. Her expression turns serious as she summons a sphere of pure energy, preparing for the conversation to come. Ayla summons a brilliant sphere of light, preparing to drop some major truth bombs. From the light emerges a tiny, curled-up figure, radiating a rainbow of energy. The figure bursts forth, revealing a cheerful, winged creature ready to make its debut. Du-ming can only stare, his brain short-circuiting at the sight of a literal fairy. Ayla formally introduces her partner, a tiny winged being named B. Hilfa. The fairy strikes a proud pose as Ayla explains their beings from another world. She lays it on him thick. His normal life is over, and the old rules no longer apply. The weight of her words hits him hard. He's no longer safe in his own world. She confirms that the brutal fight he witnessed is just another Tuesday in the world of fairies. Ayla delivers the final chilling warning. From now on, his life is on the line. Ayla offers to guide him through this new, unacceptable reality, her tiny partner puffing out its chest with pride. The fairy chimes in with a burst of sparkles, promising her full support on his crazy new journey. But Du-ming has heard enough, his voice cutting through their offer with raw frustration. Both Ayla and her partner are taken aback by his sudden, angry outburst. He rejects their entire reality, his hand clenching as he refuses to listen to any more ridiculous stories. Overwhelmed, he blames her for dragging him into this mess, wishing they'd never crossed paths. Ayla listens intently, her expression hardening as he lays all the blame at her feet. He recounts the chaos of the last 24 hours, from the fight to his strange new abilities. The idea that this new life of constant danger is something he has to accept is completely infuriating. Finally breaking down, he screams in utter despair, demanding to know why this is happening to him. Ayla cuts through his frantic outburst with a sharp command to calm down. Her shout snaps him out of his spiral, leaving him wide-eyed and speechless. Du-ming's anger deflates, his head hanging low in defeated silence. A tense quiet settles over the room as the weight of his new reality sinks in. Even the tiny fairy seems confused by the sudden heavy atmosphere. Ayla delivers a cold dose of truth, telling him he has no choice but to live with it. She gets right in his face, spelling out the immediate danger he's now in. The fiery warrior is coming back for his fairy, and Du Ming is completely out of his league. He's left stunned as the gravity of her warning finally hits home. But Du Ming scoffs, telling her to just give the fairy away since he never wanted it anyway. Ayla and her partner are completely unimpressed by his brilliant plan. A flicker of hope returns as he asks if there's another way out of this mess. He desperately demands to know if they can just take the fairy out of him. The tiny fairy cheerfully confirms that yes, there is a way. Ayla coldly agrees, admitting it's possible to separate him from his new power. Du Ming leans in, his eyes wide with anticipation, asking for the solution. Her partner drops the bombshell with a chilling smile. The only way out is his death. The grim reality is spelled out. Once the host is gone, the fairy core is all that's left. He slumps in defeat, finally understanding the true meaning of her earlier warning. Ayla confirms his grim conclusion with a simple shake of her head. A terrifying vision flashes through his mind, a fatal blow delivered by an unknown assailant. The vision shifts to a somber, distant memory of two figures standing in mourning. This painful memory shatters like glass, hinting at a deep, buried trauma. Du Ming snaps back to reality, gasping for breath as the weight of his new fate crashes down. Ayla explains that taking him to her base isn't an option due to special circumstances. Instead, she offers to become his personal guard and teach him how to survive. Du Ming is still doubtful, but she insists the fairy inside him is stronger than he can imagine. Her partner reveals he's bonded with the legendary Queen of Thorns, one of only 2 Queen-class fairies. The tiny creature confidently assures him that with such power, he'll be just fine. Ayla cuts in with a crucial question, asking if he's even tried communicating with his new partner. Du Ming is completely lost, asking how he's supposed to talk to something inside him. Her partner explains it's as simple as having a conversation, but Du Ming's still not getting it. Ayla figures his fairy is just exhausted and dormant after the intense battle. She suddenly changes gears, ordering him to take off his clothes right now. Du Ming is completely flustered, shouting in disbelief at her sudden command. His face turns beet red as his mind jumps to all the wrong conclusions. The tiny fairy screams in frustration as Du Ming starts with his pants, completely misinterpreting the order. He sheepishly apologizes, admitting it's just a weird habit he has. Now shirtless, he awkwardly covers himself, feeling completely exposed and unnatural. Ayla tells him to get ready as she prepares to pump him full of energy. He panics as her hand crackles with energy, begging her to wait. With a nervous sweat, he asks the million-dollar question. Does it hurt? She calmly reassures him it'll be nothing more than a little bug bite. Reluctantly, he closes his eyes and braces for the inevitable jolt. Ayla unleashes a torrent of power, sending a massive surge of energy directly into him. His eyes fly open in shock. This is definitely not a bug bite. He grits his teeth in agony as a violent purple energy erupts in response. Screaming, he's thrown back by the raw, untamed power coursing through him. The energy solidifies into a massive wall of razor-sharp purple crystals. He's completely consumed by the chaotic vortex, his screams echoing from the epicenter. He stares in horror as jagged purple crystals erupt from his own skin. His hand is completely consumed, becoming a weapon he can't control. The agonizing crystallization spreads across his entire body, threatening to shatter him. His consciousness is ripped from his body, plunging him into a strange psychic void. He tumbles helplessly through an endless expanse of darkness and shattered energy. The void shifts into a cosmic dreamscape, filled with swirling nebulas of pure power. Upside down and out of control, his mind struggles to process the impossible journey. A blinding rift of pure white light tears through the darkness, beckoning him forward. He's pulled irresistibly towards the light, his face a mask of utter bewilderment. And on the other side, he comes face to face with the calm, enigmatic spirit of his fairy. He's still reeling from the psychic whiplash, his expression completely blank. The void gives way to an endless field of ethereal purple roses. Turning away, he tries to make sense of this impossible dreamscape. A sudden presence makes him glance back, his instincts on high alert. Before him, a colossal rose of pure energy blooms from the chaos. The flower begins to pulse with a blinding, otherworldly light. From its petals emerges the regal figure he's been searching for, the Queen of Thorns. Suddenly, he's trapped in a sphere of energy, completely at her mercy. The sphere pulls him forward, his panic growing as he's drawn closer. The queen greets him with an imposing gaze, her hand reaching out to claim her new partner. Their hands meet, bridging the gap between the human world and the realm of fairies. A blinding flash of purple light seals the pact between the boy and his terrifyingly powerful partner. His mind is flooded with a vision of a new world, a cosmic core of pure, untamed energy. Duming's eyes fly open, snapping him back to a reality that's just become infinitely more complicated. He lets out a terrified scream, the psychic backlash of the connection overwhelming his senses. Back in his room, shadowy tendrils of energy erupt from his body, tethering him to a mysterious floating orb. Ayla watches with wide eyes, realizing the Queen of Thorns is about to make her grand entrance. Even her tiny partner is confused, completely unprepared for this level of raw power. Duming can only stare in awe, finally understanding the true nature of the being inside him. The orb begins to crack and shatter, unable to contain the immense power about to be unleashed. From the shattered core emerges the Queen of Thorns, radiating an aura of pure command. Her piercing purple eyes open, taking in the new world around her for the first time. Ayla and her partner can only stare, completely stunned by the legendary fairy's presence. The tiny fairy immediately bows, greeting the legendary being with the respect she commands. The queen gestures for them to rise, her voice calm but filled with undeniable authority. Her gaze settles on Ayla's partner, her expression turning from regal to intensely curious. She questions the tiny fairy's origins, noting a complete lack of data on her existence. Hilfi explains she's a late model, created just as the Great War was ending. The queen's expression softens with a hint of sorrow, calling the little fairy lucky to have missed the conflict. With a heavy heart, she asks a question that reveals just how long she's been asleep. Hilfi nervously calculates the years, her numbers climbing into the thousands. She finally lands on the shocking answer: the queen has been dormant for 6,500 years. The queen's expression is heavy, the weight of millennia settling upon her. As she laments the lost time, Duming can only stammer, completely out of his depth. Her intense gaze finally turns to the boy who woke her from her long slumber. Duming points at himself, struggling to find the words to address literal royalty. She formally introduces herself to her new host, her name echoing with ancient power, Vitas Saibes. Vitas bows her head, offering a sincere apology for choosing him in a moment of crisis. Her unexpected politeness leaves him flustered, trying to brush off the life-altering event. She then urges him to look, drawing his attention to the shimmering energy of her wings. The queen quizzes the younger fairy, wanting to know what the new generation knows about her legend. Hilfi nervously recites the basics. Vitas commands space and can transform into a weapon. Vitas seems unimpressed, asking if that's all they teach in the history books these days. Ayla confirms that's the extent of the publicly available information within her organization. The ancient queen processes this, her expression unreadable as she contemplates the new era. She then turns to Duming with a serious warning: keep his status as her host a top secret. Vitas drops another bombshell with a deadpan expression. He's about to die. Duming's brain short-circuits, completely blindsided by her grim prediction. She clarifies their compatibility is dangerously low, making secrecy his only lifeline for now. Vitas reminds them that as a first-generation queen, her value is immeasurable, host or no host. Hilfi looks on nervously as the queen lays out the grim reality of their world. She explains that second-generation fairies are basically copies, reverse-engineered from the originals. The first generation's bodies are the ultimate prize, holding all the secrets to their power. Ayla drives the point home, asking if he finally gets how much trouble he's in. Duming can only nod, the weight of his new reality finally starting to sink in. Turning her attention back to royalty, Ayla formally addresses the queen with a question. She needs to know the most critical number, their current adaptation rate. Vitas delivers the grim news with a quiet glance, a dangerously low 16%. Ayla and her partner are completely stunned. That number is practically a death sentence. Duming, however, is just lost, having no clue what this new piece of jargon even means. Vitas dismisses him as useless, confirming his power level is currently a complete joke. With her royal assessment delivered, she announces her departure and begins to fade away. The Queen of Thorns vanishes into a swirling vortex of cosmic energy. Her essence shrinks into a tiny orb, shooting directly back towards Duming. It slams into his chest, sealing itself away and leaving him alone with his thoughts. Ayla is still reeling from the number, trying to wrap her head around the impossible odds. Dooming, completely clueless, finally asks what 16% is even supposed to mean. B. Hilfa jumps in, ready to drop some much-needed exposition about their adaptation rate. She explains that even a random person off the street could hit 10% with a lesser fairy. Ayla drives the point home. 15% is the bare minimum to survive, and he's barely scraping by. Ayla admits that while 16% is dangerously low, it's not a completely hopeless situation. She offers a shred of hope, revealing her own rate skyrocketed from 30 to 80%. Deciding he's had enough for one night, she hands him back his clothes. With a stretch, she declares his hellish training regimen will begin this weekend. As he gets dressed, Ayla drops another bombshell, asking if he has a spare room. Dooming's brain short-circuits again as he realizes his new bodyguard wants to be his new roommate.
She lays out the cold, hard logic. A bodyguard is useless if she's not around to guard him.
Defeated by her flawless reasoning, he can only blush and agree to the new living arrangement. And just like that, Dooming's house has a new, very dangerous tenant for the night. The next morning arrives, bringing with it the dawn of his completely insane new life. Ayla's training begins with a brutal morning run, and Dooming is already falling way behind. He collapses in exhaustion, completely out of breath and begging for a break. Running on fumes, he complains that 4 hours of this on 3 hours of sleep is pure torture. Ayla looks back, completely unfazed by his whining and ready for the next phase. She announces the end of his warm-up, revealing they're just getting started. Their next stop is a massive, derelict warehouse, the perfect spot for some private training. Inside, Ayla gets down to business, asking the queen about Dooming's new healing factor. Vitus reveals that at his current level, regrowing a limb would take a solid 6 hours. But a simple broken bone? That'll patch itself up in a mere 10 minutes. Ayla is visibly impressed, realizing the first generation's power is on a whole other level. Ayla gears up, her expression all business as she prepares for the real lesson. She declares it's time for practical training, and Dooming has no idea what's coming. He can only stare in confusion, a bead of sweat betraying his growing anxiety. With a shout, Ayla unleashes her power, calling forth her armed load in a storm of blue lightning. In a flash, her workout gear is replaced by a high-tech combat suit crackling with energy. Dooming's jaw hits the floor, completely blown away by the real-life magical girl transformation. Both Hilfa and the regal Queen of Thorns materialize, ready to observe the lesson. Ayla turns to Dooming, telling him it's his turn to summon his own power. He's completely lost, insisting he's not armed and has no idea what she means. Hilfa explains he needs to focus on his heart and recall the feeling of his first transformation. Ayla's partner reminds him that he was in control during the first fight, even managing to load his arm. The tiny fairy tells him to feel out which weapon suits him best and make his choice. The queen casually adds that his arsenal is unlimited, so he can't really make a wrong choice. With a new sense of determination, Dooming agrees to give it a shot. He closes his eyes, focusing inward to tap into his newfound power. His mind enters a vast armory, a void filled with an endless selection of deadly weapons. His eyes snap open, a flash of purple in his hair revealing his decision has been made. In a surge of purple lightning, a massive sword and a sturdy shield materialize in his hands. He can only stare in awe, feeling the immense power of his new gear. Ayla gives an approving nod, praising his balanced choice of offense and defense. He admits his epic weapon choice is based entirely on his favorite video game. Ayla reveals her power is on par with the fiery warrior he barely survived. To prepare him for the rematch, she's going to mimic that same enemy's attacks. She casually shatters a metal pole with a flick of her wrist, just to prove her point. Grabbing the broken pipe, she fashions a makeshift spear for the lesson. Her eyes flare with power as she announces the real training is about to begin. Without another word, she rockets forward in a devastating lunge. Dooming barely has time to react, his gaming instincts kicking in just in time. Her simple strike slams into his shield with the force of a freight train. He's sent flying, his new gear and his confidence completely shattered by her first move. He slams into a concrete wall, the impact rattling him to the core. The sheer force of the blow leaves him terrified and on the verge of tears. Before he can recover, another strike lands, reminding him this is no game. Ayla scolds him for his poor technique, telling him to use the shield he summoned. She orders him to pay attention, because his life depends on reading his opponent's moves. But her lesson is lost on him as he collapses, overwhelmed by the pain. Unsympathetic, she screams at him to get back on his feet and fight. He can only cry out in agony, his arm completely useless after the last block. But beneath the surface, his broken bones begin to creep back into place. In a sickening snap, his arm heals itself, leaving him stunned by his own power. He stares in shock as his hand completely recovers from the brutal blow. Ayla, unimpressed, simply tells him to get up and come at her again. A flicker of determination sparks in his eyes as he grabs his weapons for another round. She meets his renewed effort with another overwhelming, lightning-fast strike. Her attack sends him stumbling, his defense completely failing against her power. As he trembles, a strange, thorny shadow appears, hinting at a deeper power. But it's not enough to stop him from crashing to the ground once more. The queen watches his pathetic display with a look of utter disappointment. This brutal lesson continues for hours, stretching all the way until dusk. By the end, Du-Ming is a bruised, exhausted mess, barely able to breathe. He's left a broken mess on the floor, the harsh reality of his weakness crashing down on him. Ayla finally calls it a day, offering a hand to the completely defeated trainee. B. Hilfy steps in with a first aid kit, ready to patch up their battered new recruit. The tiny fairy gets to work, tending to the numerous cuts and scrapes covering his arm. Still reeling, Du-Ming questions if this brutal beatdown even served a purpose. Ayla pauses, her silence a heavy answer to his desperate question. He finally cracks, overwhelmed by his own helplessness and the futility of the fight. But instead of sympathy, she grabs his injured arm with a surprisingly firm grip. He cries out as a sharp pain shoots through his already battered limb. The sudden jolt leaves him stunned and speechless, completely confused by her actions. Ayla makes a solemn vow, her eyes blazing as she promises to keep him alive. Her fierce declaration leaves him speechless, a flicker of hope in his tear-filled eyes. Later that night, her partner confirms their situation is more complicated than they thought. Ayla reviews the data, admitting she underestimated just how low his power level truly is. She predicts their fiery foe will return, and this time he won't be coming alone. A list of potential new threats appears, each one a deadly challenge for their rookie. Her partner poses the critical question, can Du-Ming even survive for 2 minutes against them? Ayla's cold assessment reveals that even with weeks of training, his survival time is shockingly short. Overhearing their grim forecast, Du-Ming learns he'd only last a pathetic 30 seconds. The crushing weight of his weakness leaves him defeated, standing alone in the dark. The queen reveals his pathetic power level can't even unlock her active abilities. She drills in the grim reality. 30 seconds is all he'd get against their fiery foe. Du-Ming desperately asks how he managed to win the first time, hoping for a repeat performance. Vetus shuts him down, explaining his first victory was a one-time power surge. She then drops another bombshell. She used the soul of her previous host to secure the win. The mention of a previous host makes his mind reel with questions. In her hand, a glowing orb of purple energy begins to fade. Her expression turns somber as she cradles the last remnant of her former partner. She warns that using this final power again will make it disappear forever. He's left completely silent, the weight of another person's sacrifice now resting on his shoulders. Du-Ming spirals into despair, questioning the point of a training that seems utterly futile. He's convinced that no matter how hard he tries, it'll all be useless in the end. Completely lost, he wonders what he's even supposed to do against such impossible odds. But a calm, regal voice cuts through his internal monologue with an unexpected offer. The queen reveals a secret path, a way to boost his survival rate to a respectable 40%. His eyes fly open, a spark of hope igniting in the darkness of his despair. The scene snaps back to the brutal reality of his training, the memory of pain still fresh. He's back on the ground, screaming as Ayla's relentless assault continues without mercy. Despite the crumbling debris and his own exhaustion, he grits his teeth and refuses to stay down. Ayla watches her battered student, pushing him to the absolute brink of his endurance. Ayla's expression hardens, her intense training session showing no signs of letting up. But Du-Ming rises again, a defiant grin on his face as he challenges her to bring it on. With a furious scream, he charges forward, swinging his sword with newfound determination. Ayla effortlessly dodges, sending him crashing to the ground as the two fairies watch from above. B. Hilfa is completely baffled, asking the queen what could have caused this sudden change in him. Vitus calmly reveals she gave him a new goal, a 40% chance of survival. The tiny fairy's eyes go wide with hope, asking if such a thing is even possible. The queen simply tells her to watch, her piercing gaze fixed on the battle below. B. Hilfa is overjoyed, believing this is the miracle they've been waiting for. But Vitus clarifies that this secret path requires time and preparation he doesn't have yet. Catching his breath, Du-Ming declares that this level of training is nowhere near enough. The queen's voice echoes with a chilling new command for the next phase of his training. Vetus orders Ayla to stop holding back and start removing his limbs without mercy. Both Ayla and her partner are completely floored by the queen's unbelievably brutal request. In a flashback, Duming desperately asks if there's truly a way to get stronger. Vetus reveals her secret plan requires the help of his completely oblivious best friend. Back in the present, Duming's expression hardens with a grim newfound resolve. He grits his teeth through the pain, channeling his despair into raw determination. With purple energy crackling around his arms, he screams at Ayla to bring her absolute worst. Ayla calmly agrees, ready to unleash the full extent of her power on her student. Ayla's eyes narrow as she prepares to unleash a whole new level of pain. Her makeshift spear shatters as she summons a far deadlier weapon from pure energy. With a single word, she unleashes a devastating wind attack, her power swirling around her. Duming can only stare in terror as a massive vortex of energy materializes before him. He's instantly sucked into the whirlwind, his screams lost in the roaring gale. The sheer force of her attack blasts a hole right through the warehouse roof. Hilfi completely panics, convinced Ayla's training has just turned fatal. But Ayla calmly reveals this overwhelming display was only 10% of her true power. Duming is torn to shreds by the vortex, his body battered by the relentless force. She warns him that the real agony is yet to come, and his healing factor won't save him from the suffering. The queen poses a chilling question, asking if he can truly afford the price of power. Duming is slammed back to the ground, the force of the attack leaving him in a heap of rubble. But through the pain and exhaustion, he grits out a defiant answer. He can take it. Vitus explains this is just a taste. He must get used to suffering before her real plan can begin. The next day at school, the brutal training feels like a distant, painful memory. His best friend calls out, completely oblivious to the hell Duming just survived. The friend cheerfully asks why he was MIA from their gaming sessions all weekend. He playfully teases Duming about neglecting his in-game stats, getting a little too close for comfort. Ayla swoops in with the perfect cover story, claiming she was tutoring her cousin all weekend. His friend is left completely baffled by this new studious version of Duming. For weeks, Duming's days began with Ayla's brutal training, leaving him a broken mess on the floor. His nights were no different, as the relentless beatdowns continued long after the school bell rang. After 4 grueling weeks of this torture, the physical phase of his training finally comes to an end. The queen declares he's ready, but warns him this next step is a one-time shot with no do-overs. Stealing his nerves, Duming agrees to begin the high-stakes memory installation. Vetus explains she'll be disconnected, leaving him to face the mental trial completely on his own. The process begins, blasting a torrent of raw data and combat experience directly into his mind. His brain is overloaded with information, the psychic energy rewriting his very instincts. He screams in agony as the foreign memories are violently seared into his consciousness. A massive energy shield erupts around him, a physical manifestation of his internal torment. He trembles uncontrollably, his hand crackling with the raw energy of the psychic download. Decades of combat experience and battlefield injuries are being crammed into his mind in mere minutes. The sheer mental overload causes a violent physical backlash, leaving him a broken mess. A single name echoes through the chaotic memories, a ghost from a long-forgotten war. He relives the final moments of the queen's previous host, a tragic farewell on the battlefield. Vetus cradles her dying partner, the memory of this loss seared into her very core. He witnesses the desolation of her world, a war-torn landscape under the watch of an unknown enemy. Through her eyes, he feels the burning rage of a warrior pushed to her absolute limit. The memories reveal not just battles, but betrayals, as a council turns its back on her. He comes face to face with the terrifying armored soldiers she once fought against. He experiences the past host being condemned for her destructive power. Duming witnesses her unleash that same power in a desperate last-ditch battle. Through her eyes, he feels the burning rage of a warrior betrayed by her own people. The memories show her allies falling one by one in the brutal conflict. He sees the silent, imposing figures of the enemy she fought to the very end. A former friend calls her crazy, questioning the very cause she's fighting for. He watches as she unleashes Vetus's full power in a final cataclysmic blast. Her spirit ascends, a beacon of defiance against the dark forces below. The memory shows her channeling every last ounce of energy for one final attack. He feels her final desperate scream as she sacrifices everything in the fight. He witnesses her final desperate dance of destruction against an overwhelming force. The memory focuses on the cold mechanical gaze of the enemy she faced alone. Through her eyes, he feels the defiant glare of a warrior facing her final stand. He sees her gracefully evade a storm of golden projectiles, a lone dancer in a field of death. But even legends can fall as a single devastating blow brings her crashing down. The chaos fades into a quiet memory, a gentle touch and a promise not to worry. He hears the voice of a lost love, encouraging her to follow her own path. The memory is a fleeting image of a kind smile, a beacon in the darkness of war. But that vision ends in a painful farewell, a hand reaching for someone already gone. The download concludes with her final moments, a defeated queen kneeling in the ruins of her world. He's thrown into the memory of a cataclysmic battle, a lone warrior against a storm of chaos. Du-Ming comes face to face with the monstrous fiery beast she fought against. He feels her grim determination, her body already crystallizing with untamed power. The memories reveal a sky swarming with winged, demonic adversaries. She's just a tiny speck of light against an overwhelming wave of destructive energy. He witnesses her clash with a colossal beast, a desperate struggle against impossible odds. The memory shows her on the brink of being devoured, staring into the jaws of defeat. But even then, she lands a devastating blow, refusing to go down without a fight. He feels the raw terror of her final moments, a desperate plea for survival echoing through his mind. The download ends with the memory of a final, overwhelming blast, sealing her tragic fate. He witnesses a final, blinding attack that tore her world apart. A promise is made to a former master, a vow to protect someone long since gone. He sees her final stand, a lone warrior against an unstoppable, monstrous force. Her eyes burn with a tragic resolve, a hero facing an unwinnable war. The memory fades, leaving the warrior's legacy reflected in Du-Ming's own soul. The torrent of memories finally settles, leaving him floating in a quiet, psychic sea. Du-Ming's eyes fly open, the weight of 1,000 battles etched onto his face. The Queen of Thorns greets him, her voice pulling him back to a harsh new reality. He jolts awake, the phantom pains of a dead warrior still echoing through his body. His room is a wreck, physical proof of the mental storm he just survived. Vitas cuts through the haze, announcing she has a post-op debrief for him. She reveals he passed out less than 2 minutes into the psychic download. The Queen explains that despite the failure, an unknown part of him absorbed every last memory. Du-Ming, still looking shell-shocked, asks if that means the insane plan actually worked. Vitas quietly confirms the memory installation was a success, much to her own surprise. Her silence, however, suggests there's a catch to this unexpected victory. Relieved, Du-Ming flops back onto his bed, hoping the daily beatdowns are finally over. A sense of finality hangs in the air, but the stormy sky hints at a new beginning. The scene shifts to the familiar warehouse, the sound of footsteps breaking the silence. Du-Ming sprints through the alley, his eyes now burning with a veteran warrior's focus. Ayla calls it a day, ending another brutal training session on the rooftop. Du-Ming lets out a massive sigh of relief, finally getting a moment to breathe. His trainer smirks, asking how he feels after weeks of non-stop punishment. He admits he's feeling stronger than ever, his body finally adapting to the abuse. But their private session is interrupted by a winged figure with some good news. The shadowy creature announces an aid application has been approved as its shadow looms over them. Before they can react, shadowy tendrils erupt from the ground, grabbing Ayla. Her eyes glow with alarm as she realizes exactly who they are. Du-Ming can only watch in horror, his newfound confidence completely shattered. Ayla is completely overwhelmed, her eyes turning red as the shadows consume her. The fiery warrior reveals a softer side, promising his daughter a gift after his mission. An ominous crow appears as he reminds his sick daughter to take her medicine. He hangs up the phone, his tender farewell a stark contrast to his brutal profession. A flashback reveals he tried to trade everything he had for his freedom. His motivation becomes clear, a promise to give his daughter a normal life. The memory darkens, hinting at the illness that threatens his family's future. A doctor confirms his worst fears, revealing a genetic disease plagues both his wife and daughter. Back in the present, the warrior sits alone, his resolve hardened by tragedy. His eyes glow with renewed purpose as he vows to do whatever it takes. Ayla realizes her own organization, ARC, is behind the ambush, and they've come to collect. Ayla is completely caught off guard, her eyes glowing red as the shadows overwhelm her. Du-Ming can only scream her name, his face a mask of pure terror. He makes a desperate lunge, reaching out in a futile attempt to save her. But his heroic charge ends with him tripping and eating pavement. As he looks up, he hears her voice call his name one last time before she's gone. He screams in helpless rage as his mentor is dragged into the darkness. Suddenly, a familiar red spear slams into the ground just inches from his face. He looks up in shock. a new, deadly presence crackling in the air. The fiery warrior descends from the sky, his weapon aimed directly at the fallen boy. Du-Ming's eyes widen in terror as he realizes his worst nightmare has just arrived. The fiery warrior Johnson stands over him, his gaze as sharp as his spear. Du-Ming is paralyzed with fear, his mind screaming that this is the end. But the queen's voice cuts through his panic, reminding him he has everything he needs to fight. Her words hit home. He's not the same weak kid anymore, and it's time to believe it. Du-Ming rises to his feet, facing his nemesis across the desolate rooftop. Johnson raises an eyebrow, sensing a completely different energy coming from the boy. Du-Ming stays silent, his new warrior instincts taking over his fear. The warrior shrugs it off, deciding the reason for the change doesn't matter. Finding his courage, Du-Ming demands to know what they did to Ayla. Johnson answers with a fiery punch, promising to send him to her right now. Du-Ming screams as the fiery fist barrels directly towards his face. Meanwhile, Ayla is violently dragged through a dark dimension by shadowy tendrils. She skids to a stop, completely baffled by her sudden and forceful relocation. Shadowy chains erupt to bind her, but she struggles defiantly against her restraints. Looking up, she finds herself trapped in a bizarre, swirling void. A monstrous, winged shadow with glowing red eyes looms over her, its presence suffocating. From the shadows, a mysterious, hooded figure watches the confrontation unfold. Ayla's eyes widen in disbelief as she recognizes the person behind the ambush. Back on the rooftop, Du-Ming catches the fiery punch, his arms screaming from the immense pressure. With gritted teeth, he pushes back, declaring this is nothing he can't handle. Johnson unleashes a devastating spear thrust, but Du-Ming's shield holds strong against the impact. The fiery warrior is completely stunned by the rookie's impossible defense. He follows up with a relentless barrage, forcing Du-Ming onto the back foot. Johnson adds a vicious kick to his assault, aiming to shatter Du-Ming's guard. Du-Ming slides back from the force of the blow, but his stance remains unbroken. The overwhelming assault finally brings him to his knees, coughing from the strain. Johnson is completely baffled. The boy's growth rate is far beyond anything he expected. Du-Ming struggles to catch his breath, the weeks of training the only thing keeping him conscious. Peeking over his shield, a flicker of defiance ignites in his eyes as he realizes he can fight back. Purple energy crackles around his hand as he decides to go all in for the win. Du-Ming takes a low stance, his sword crackling with energy as he prepares for round 2. Johnson scowls, admitting he's still injured and this kid has become a real nuisance. His bandaged hands tighten around his spear, a clear sign he's not at full strength. Done waiting, the fiery warrior lunges forward, unleashing a blazing spear strike. But Du-Ming's eyes are different now, tracking the attack with a veteran's clarity. He meets the fiery assault head-on, his shield erupting in a shower of sparks. To his own shock, he shouts in triumph as his defense actually holds strong. He even manages to repel the attack, sending a shocked Johnson reeling backward. But his victory is short-lived as the fiery spear tip suddenly breaks through his guard. Johnson roars, pouring on the pressure and shattering Du-Ming's renewed confidence. Du-Ming's eyes go wide as the fiery spear tip tears right through his shield. In a flash of lightning, his last line of defense completely shatters into pieces. The remnants of his shield slam into the pavement, useless and broken. He's blown back by the force, his mind on the verge of complete collapse. Overwhelmed by the agony, Du-Ming can only scream on the cracked ground. Johnson coldly states this is all Du-Ming's fault for possessing the fairy he needs. The warrior's true motive is revealed. He's doing all this for his dying daughter. A flashback shows a doctor confirming the astronomical cost of his daughter's treatment. He desperately vows to find the money, refusing to lose another person he loves. Back in the present, Vita screams a final warning as Du-Ming's consciousness begins to fade. Johnson raises his spear for the final blow, offering a cold goodbye. Du-Ming can only let out a hoarse scream, completely overwhelmed by pain and despair. Vitus declares his consciousness has collapsed, bidding her host a final farewell. Meanwhile, Ayla stares in disbelief at the true identity of her captor. A shadowy figure known as Dark Shadow emerges, crackling with ominous energy. The masked man casually dismisses her anger, claiming he's just a mercenary doing a job. Ayla furiously demands to know what his real plan is. Her captor feigns ignorance, asking what she expects him to do. He then drops a bombshell, revealing he knows she's the daughter of Fang Zhou. Desperate, Ayla tries to buy her freedom, offering to double his payment. The masked man scoffs at her offer, claiming a professional has principles to uphold. With a snap of his fingers, he declares she'll be a guest in his crow's nest for a while. Ayla glares up, her eyes blazing with defiance as the shadowy chains tighten their grip. Her captor unleashes his power, initiating a system-wide shutdown of the area. She grits her teeth in fury, refusing to be just a pawn in his mysterious game. A network of glowing eyes activates in the darkness, watching her every move. Back on the rooftop, a surge of untamed purple energy erupts from Duming's fallen body. Johnson's eyes go wide in shock, completely unprepared for this sudden turn of events. A massive sphere of chaotic purple energy explodes from the ground where Duming lay. The sheer force of the blast sends the fiery warrior stumbling backward in disbelief. Jagged purple crystals erupt from his arm once more, crackling with untamed lightning. His limb transforms into a monstrous crystalline weapon, pulsing with raw power. Johnson stares in disbelief, realizing this power surge shouldn't even be possible. But the Queen understands exactly what's unfolding within her new host. She reveals a new consciousness, forged from battle memories, is seizing control. Vetus warns this incomplete persona is dangerously unstable, threatening to destroy them both. Within the psychic storm, a memory of a gentle hand reaches out from the past. The Queen is confronted by the lingering, ethereal spirit of her previous host. Her thoughts drift to her former partner, a legendary warrior named Naomi. But Vetus recoils in agony, refusing to let the ghosts of the past consume her again. The spirit of her former host makes a solemn vow never to give up on her. Naomi's lingering will leans in, her words a final, ghostly comfort. With newfound resolve, Vetus accepts the past and makes a critical decision. She initiates a dangerous soul reconstruction, overloading her own core to save her host. Back on the rooftop, Duming's body is racked with power as the reconstruction begins. His arm fully crystallizes into a deadly, monstrous claw, the transformation now complete. Johnson senses the shift, realizing the boy's entire presence has changed. A new, unhinged personality grins through Duming's face, eager for a real fight. Johnson returns the crazed smile, promising to grant his opponent's death wish. The fiery warrior unleashes a blazing spear strike, restarting the brutal battle. Johnson goes all in, vowing to end this fight with or without his ultimate power. The two warriors collide in a devastating clash, shaking the very foundation of the rooftop. Their brutal exchange ends in a violent spray of red against the stormy sky. Elsewhere, Ayla's shadowy prison shatters in a burst of brilliant blue lightning. She rockets from the wreckage, a blur of righteous fury breaking free from her chains. Ayla emerges in her full combat gear, her power now completely unleashed. Her captor can only stare in disbelief, his perfect trap broken in mere moments. With a furious roar, Ayla prepares to unleash a chilling counterattack. She summons a massive snowstorm, trapping the mercenary in a swirling vortex of ice. But the masked man plays his final card, taunting her with the fate of her young student. Ayla's eyes blaze with cold fury, her energy sword ready to carve a path back to her student. She unleashes a storm of icy projectiles, giving her captor no time to react. With a desperate cry, she rockets away, her only thought to save Duming from certain doom. Back on the rooftop, the battle's brutal conclusion is marked by a fallen spear and a flash of crimson lightning. Johnson's eyes widen in disbelief, the veteran warrior completely outplayed by the rookie. In a shocking reversal, Duming's monstrous arm has found its mark, ending the fight in a single devastating blow. Ayla finally arrives on the scene, landing just in time to witness the horrifying aftermath. She screams his name, her heart sinking as she sees what her student has become. The unhinged persona drives its crystalline weapon home, delivering a decisive and final strike. With his last breath, the fiery warrior can only offer a quiet, tragic apology. The force of the blow sends the fiery warrior staggering back, his fate sealed. As the berserker rage fades, Duming's eyes return, haunted by the battle's grim conclusion. Johnson's body collapses onto the rain-soaked rooftop, the fight finally over. He can only watch in horror as his defeated foe dissolves into nothingness. The crushing reality hits him. He's just taken a life for the very first time. Overwhelmed by guilt and sorrow, he lets out a heart-wrenching scream into the rain. Ayla watches on, her expression a mixture of pity and grave concern for her student. His cries echo across the desolate rooftop as a lone crow observes from above. But the crow isn't the only one watching, as a robotic observer deems the situation interesting. All that remains of the fiery warrior is his scarf, a lonely memento floating in a puddle. Back in his apartment, Duming finds a recorded message left just for him. Ayla's voice expresses her relief that he's awake and in one piece after the ordeal. She explains her sudden absence, having been called away on an urgent organization matter. Ayla warns him a replacement is coming, and he must hide his status as the Queen's host at all costs. Left alone with his thoughts, Du-ming can only prepare a sad packet of instant noodles. The message reveals she's also arranged for him to take a break from school to recover. Her recording ends with a simple instruction to take care of himself. He prepares his lonely meal, the weight of his new life settling in. Du-ming tries to eat, the silence of the room a heavy reminder of his isolation. He devours the noodles with a desperate intensity, trying to swallow his trauma along with his food. As he makes a mess of his meal, the queen's voice suddenly cuts through the silence. Du-ming blames the spicy noodles for his tears, trying to ignore the voice in his head. Vetus gives him a quick medical update before revealing she has something far more important to discuss. Too exhausted to argue, he simply tells her to get on with it. She reveals that protecting his berserker personality caused a massive system overload. The queen explains that while some data was corrupted, her core functions remain intact. But the overload had a surprising side effect, boosting their compatibility to a solid 25%. Still numb from the recent battle, Du-ming just wants to know what else is on the agenda. Vetus delivers a chilling warning. His alter ego could permanently take over if he's not careful. Trying to escape his new reality, Du-ming retreats to the familiar comfort of his computer. Du-ming considers the queen's warning, a cold resolve hardening in his eyes. With a click, he dives headfirst into the virtual world of Rodinia, his only escape. His level 98 avatar materializes, a powerful warrior in a world far from his own. A sudden alert catches his attention, his in-game eyes mirroring his real-life power. An old friend appears, a level 99 player named Fan Xing, questioning his sudden appearance. She quickly notices his somber mood, asking if something is wrong. Du-ming remains silent, his digital avatar reflecting his real-world trauma. Trying to lift his spirits, she offers to show him a secret bugged area she recently discovered. A party invitation flashes across his screen, a digital hand reaching out in the darkness. For the first time in days, a genuine smile appears as he accepts her offer. But his quiet recovery is shattered by a loud, insistent knock at the door. He cautiously peeks out, completely surprised by who's on the other side. It's his school friends, armed with snacks and drinks, here to check on their missing buddy. They make themselves at home in his spacious apartment, asking if he's recovered from his illness. Du-ming lies through his teeth, claiming he's just getting over a simple cold. One of the girls asks about his cousin, wondering where Ayla has disappeared to. He quickly spins a tale about a family emergency, hoping they'll buy his flimsy excuse. Meanwhile, his best friend has already made his way upstairs to Du-ming's gaming rig. Du-ming's eyes widen in absolute fury as he sees his friend messing with his computer. He screams at his friend for daring to touch his sacred PC without permission. His friend immediately starts teasing, asking if he's got a crush on his new gaming partner. Du-ming gets flustered, insisting it's just for quest rewards and he doesn't even know their gender. The girl chimes in, convinced it's a girl and accusing him of some serious in-game flirting. The group erupts in laughter as Du-ming begs them to stop, while a chibi Ayla looks on unimpressed. As dusk settles, the impromptu party finally starts to wind down. They make plans to meet up tomorrow, urging him not to become a total shut-in. With a final wave, his friends head out, leaving him to the quiet of his apartment. Du-ming watches them go, a hint of his old self returning as he says goodbye. But the moment they're gone, he's drawn back to the familiar glow of his gaming setup. He logs out of Rodinia, the virtual world's beauty, a stark contrast to his harsh new reality. His new friend simply smiles, telling him not to worry about his quiet mood. Du-ming's avatar waves a final goodbye before logging out of the virtual world. Watching him go, she can't help but find the moody boy intriguing. Elsewhere, a strange device activates, projecting a beam of holographic light. A mysterious woman watches a replay of the rooftop battle, finding the outcome surprisingly interesting. Her screen focuses on the exact moment Du-ming's berserker form landed the final blow. Below the violent replay, two new figures are locked in an elegant, intimate dance. A man in white gracefully spins his blindfolded partner across the floor. Their beautiful dance is a chilling contrast to the brutal fight playing out on the screen above. As they strike a final pose, the memory of Du-ming's battle continues to loom over them. The man in white grins, pointing out their new target to his terrified dance partner. His partner, Shuiyin, can only stare back with eyes wide with absolute horror. At the scene of the battle, a mysterious figure kneels to retrieve the fallen warrior's scarf. Clutching the memento, he furiously vows to avenge his fallen brother. Back in his apartment, Du-ming is surrounded by his old life, a world that no longer feels real. His phone buzzes relentlessly, flooded with over 99 unread messages from Ayla. He wanders through a deserted alley, the bright sun a stark contrast to his dark thoughts. The world seems to close in on him, the feeling of being watched inescapable. Unbeknownst to him, shadowy figures are already tracking his every move. He senses the presence of other fairies, but Vetus dismisses them as weak and insignificant. His eyes narrow as he realizes the insignificant fairies are actually a new set of enemies. 3 mysterious figures block his path, revealing they've been stalking him for some time. The strange trio poses dramatically, their intentions clearly hostile. But Dooming's expression is one of cold annoyance, not fear. The leader holds up a familiar scarf, demanding to know if Dooming killed his brother. Dooming plays dumb, claiming he has no idea what they're talking about. His act is cut short when they furiously name their fallen comrade Yue Han Shun. His silence is the only answer they need as purple energy crackles around his fists. The leader takes his lack of denial as a full-blown confession. The woman chimes in, furious that he would dare harm their little Yu Han. The muscular one strikes a dramatic pose, his heart supposedly shattered by the news. Dooming ignores the theatrics, his focus solely on the crackling energy in his hand. Suddenly, Vetus warns of a powerful presence rapidly approaching their location. His eyes snap upward, realizing the new threat is coming from directly above. The trio of Avengers is also caught off guard, their attention diverted to the sky. A flash of alarm crosses the leader's face as he senses the incoming power. A figure plummets from the clouds, heralded as the angry crow taking flight. The mysterious newcomer descends with blinding speed, preparing for a powerful landing. He slams into the ground with explosive force, shattering the pavement in a massive shockwave. Debris flies everywhere as the dust settles from the devastating arrival. Dooming braces himself, his own power flaring as he prepares for the worst. The shockwave sends the wannabe Avengers flying, their dramatic entrance completely ruined. Through the dust, a new figure emerges, clenching a fist with surprising power. A masked girl in a pink dress and armor stands in the crater, her presence radiating authority. Dooming can only stare, his confusion mounting as the situation gets even weirder. The mysterious girl strikes a pose, her glowing eyes locking onto her target. She removes her mask, revealing a surprisingly young face as she asks for him by name. His brain short-circuits, completely unable to process this bizarre turn of events. Later at a dessert shop, the mysterious girl calmly sips her drink after explaining the situation. Dooming, still reeling, asks the only logical question, is she Ayla's little sister? She casually asks if he can't see the family resemblance, completely unfazed. Dooming stares blankly, seeing absolutely no connection between her and Ayla. The trio of Avengers returns, demanding to know who this pint-sized powerhouse is. Her cute facade drops instantly, replaced by a terrifying aura as she issues a deadly threat. The wannabe villains are completely stunned into silence by her sudden change in demeanor. They wisely choose to flee, screaming empty threats as they beat a hasty retreat. Dooming mentally compares the two sisters, one a cold professional, the other a cheerful killer. He concludes that the two couldn't possibly be more different from each other. Despite her cheerful attitude, Dooming can't shake the feeling that something is very wrong. Her expression suddenly sharpens, her gaze locking onto him as if sensing his doubt. A perfectly timed phone call interrupts their standoff, with "Sister" flashing on the screen. She answers cheerfully, confirming she's found him and is surprisingly still alive. While squatting on her chair, she casually complains about some small fry she dealt with and demands a raise. Dooming can only stare, completely baffled by her bizarre phone etiquette. Her mood flips instantly as she relays Ayla's angry question about his ignored messages. He tiredly admits his phone is broken, which she immediately reports back to her sister. After listening for a moment, she hangs up, ready to pass on Ayla's instructions. She tells him to relax and assures him everything is under control as he tries to leave. But his escape is cut short as she grabs a fistful of his shirt from behind. Her sweet demeanor vanishes as she furiously demands to know where he thinks he's going. Dooming tries to make a crude escape, claiming he needs to use the restroom. But his new babysitter isn't having it, telling him to hold it first. Their tense standoff is briefly interrupted by a waitress delivering their milk tea. He stays silent, but the girl has something else planned to keep him there. She shoves her phone in his face, demanding he look at something important. The screen shows his rooftop battle, with a headline declaring him the killer of a top warrior. Dooming stares at the phone, completely baffled by his newfound and unwanted fame. His new partner smugly remarks that he's quite the interesting rookie. He can only repeat her words in shock, having no idea of his opponent's status. She casually confirms he just took down the strongest of the third-generation fairies. She smugly adds that for all his strength, the fallen warrior was still no match for her. Ming's expression darkens, the weight of his new reputation sinking in. Vitas chimes in, warning him that his newfound fame has put a massive target on his back. His new partner scoffs, revealing Ayla believes he'll never reach more than 50% of his potential. Ming's eye twitches, completely baffled by this sudden and bizarre information dump. With a sudden burst of energy, she declares it's time for some hands-on practice. He does a spit take, completely unprepared for her aggressive training methods. Before he can even protest, she sends him flying with a swift and powerful kick. She grabs him by the collar and starts dragging him away, ignoring his desperate pleas about an appointment. The pint-sized trainer glances back, her annoyed expression making it clear that class is now in session. He desperately resists, but his new trainer insists that practice is not optional. But their argument is cut short as a group on motorcycles calls out his name. His friends roll up, completely oblivious to the supernatural drama unfolding. Ming is caught in a headlock, his social life and secret life colliding spectacularly. His buddy is surprised to see him so early, not realizing he was being dragged there. One of his friends immediately asks about the cute but terrifying girl holding him hostage. The new trainer and Ming share a moment of awkward silence, unsure how to explain this. Ming realizes his friends are just normal people, completely unaware of the world he now lives in. His partner's eyes widen with understanding, quickly grasping the delicate situation. She smoothly introduces herself to the group as Ayla's sweet and innocent little sister. The new girl, Icy, puts on a dramatic performance playing the part of a concerned relative. She claims she was just visiting her cousin, all while keeping him in a death grip. His friends completely buy the act, asking if she's really Ayla's little sister. One of them gets a little too close, trying to see the family resemblance for himself. He tests her patience by pinching her cheek, a decision he'll immediately regret. The sweet facade shatters as she sinks her teeth into his hand with surprising force. Her victim ages 10 years in an instant, stunned by the pint-sized powerhouse's bite. Another friend finds the whole exchange hilarious, calling the tiny terror cute. She invites Icy for milk tea, completely oblivious to the danger she's befriending. Ming glares suspiciously, demanding to know what they're plotting with his new babysitter. A sudden scream for help shatters their casual hangout, leaving Ming and his friends baffled. Their confusion clears as a purse snatcher sprints through the crowd, his victim's cries echoing behind him. The thief barrels forward, screaming for everyone to get out of his way. He makes the mistake of running right past Ming, who stands his ground with cold indifference. A single glance is all it takes for Ming's warrior instincts to kick in. With lightning speed, he snags the thief's collar, stopping him dead in his tracks. The punk is completely stunned, not expecting anyone to have the nerve to intervene. Reaching for a hidden weapon, he warns Ming that he's made a huge mistake. The thief pulls a knife, promising to make the boy regret his heroic impulse. But Ming effortlessly blocks the attack, his grip turning the thug's threat into a pained yelp. With a single decisive move, Ming completely neutralizes the would-be tough guy. He calmly retrieves the purse as the thief grovels for mercy on the pavement. His friends can only stare in disbelief, wondering when he became so incredibly strong. Ming plays it off as quick reflexes, while Icy adds a few celebratory stomps to the downed thief. The purse's owner rushes over, looking relieved and extremely grateful for his help. He gently hands the recovered purse back to the thankful woman. She thanks him profusely, but Ming just shrugs it off, trying to downplay his heroic moment. But a close-up reveals a sly, knowing smile, hinting that this was no random encounter. Later, Ming's apartment door is thrown open with a dramatic entrance. Icy stands in his doorway, confirming he's a geeky otaku just as her sister suspected. Icy rolls on the couch, laughing that he's far more interesting than ordinary people. Ming deadpans that he's glad she's enjoying herself at his expense. She changes the subject, scrolling through her phone and downplaying his earlier heroics. Icy shows him a selfie from their day out, reminding him how they got roped into hanging out all day. The next photo shows the thief's arrest, with Icy complaining she would have left sooner if she'd known. She giggles to herself, clearly pleased with the day's chaotic events. Completely drained, Ming collapses onto the couch just as his phone buzzes. He wearily picks up the device, wondering who could possibly be messaging him now. His expression shifts to one of mild confusion as he reads the new message. It's a thank you note from the woman he saved, calling him her little brother. AC peeks over his shoulder, demanding to know what's so interesting on his phone. Before he can answer, she snatches the device right out of his hands. The sound of hysterical laughter echoes from his apartment into the night. Icy is in tears, completely losing it over the little brother message. Du-Ming explodes, furious that the little brat dared to touch his phone. Her laughter dies instantly, replaced by a pouty glare at being called a brat. She throws a tantrum on the couch, insisting she's 16 and not a kid. Du-Ming is completely stunned by her age, while she casually asks if he didn't know. He admits he's shocked, his brain struggling to process the new information. Icy reveals she became a fairy as a baby, which explains her slow growth rate. Du-Ming listens intently, his expression unreadable as he processes her strange life story. Icy admits her life has only been training and danger, confessing she's never lived like a normal person. Seeing a rare moment of vulnerability, Du-Ming asks if she'd like to try it. Her eyes widen, a flicker of hope appearing as she considers his unexpected offer. The scene cuts to a brutal video game, where a massive boss prepares to annihilate a tiny player. Icy frantically mashes the controller, her character desperately dodging a devastating attack. Her face is a mask of pure concentration as she pushes through the punishing boss fight. But her efforts are in vain as the infamous "You died" screen flashes, sealing her defeat. She erupts in a furious tantrum, screaming that the game is impossible and its developer is a monster. Her rage quickly dissolves into tears as she turns to Du-Ming, blaming him for her gaming failure. Du-Ming fires back, reminding her she's the one who chose the impossible challenge. His sudden outburst leaves the pint-sized powerhouse completely stunned. Fed up with her tantrum, he hoists her into the air for some impromptu wrestling practice. He executes a perfect flying hammer, slamming her onto the couch to end the argument. Elsewhere, the purse snatcher from earlier reassures someone that his injuries are minor. His partner quietly confirms their mission was a near-perfect success. The thief sits battered and bruised in a wheelchair, the true cost of their success revealed. The woman he robbed pushes his wheelchair, promising him everything will be fine. Her eyes glow ominously as she claims to be just an ordinary person, a chillingly obvious lie. The scene changes to Du-Ming standing before a massive, unfamiliar building, wondering where he's been taken. Icy pinches her nose, complaining that Du-Ming stinks, much to his annoyance. She points to the sky, summoning a brilliant ball of light. With a command, a rainbow streak of energy descends from above. The light condenses into a pulsating orb, crackling with power. A pink-haired fairy named Sylph appears, striking a cheerful pose. Du-Ming is shocked, realizing her fairy is a carbon copy of Ayla's, just with a different color scheme. Icy smugly tells him it's his turn to show off his own partner. With a deep breath, Du-Ming reluctantly calls out the name Sebeth. A regal voice answers his call as a new figure descends from the shadows. Vetus materializes in her true form, a stunning and powerful fairy queen cloaked in purple energy. Icy's fairy, Sylph, is completely stunned by the queen's majestic and unfamiliar presence. Her master is equally baffled, admitting she's never seen a fairy quite like this one. The two fairies lock eyes in a tense standoff, one curious, the other radiating pure authority. Sylph is completely intimidated by Vetus's overwhelming power, her own energy flickering in comparison. Vetus introduces herself, and Sylph's eyes widen as she connects the name to a legendary figure. The pink fairy screams in terror, correctly identifying her as the infamous Queen of Thorns. Du-Ming's face drains of all color, convinced his secret is about to be exposed. But Sylph scoffs, dismissing the queen as a cheap knockoff and picking her nose dismissively. Du-Ming nearly collapses with relief, realizing the pint-sized fairy just saved his skin. Icy agrees with her partner, declaring Vetus is just a small, fake version of the real deal. Icy cracks her knuckles, smugly declaring that their little show and tell is over and it's time to fight. Du-Ming furiously reminds her she just wanted to see his fairy, but she calls him stupid for believing her. Resigned to his fate, he reluctantly agrees to spar, even if she is Ayla's sister. Before he can even finish his sentence, Icy launches herself at him with blinding speed. He barely manages to block her attack, his arms screaming under the unexpected weight of the blow. Using him as a launch pad, she rockets into the air amidst an explosion of purple energy. The force of her move sends a massive shockwave tearing through the abandoned warehouse. Du-Ming slides back from the impact, digging his heels in to stay on his feet. His eyes widen in disbelief as he realizes his new trainer is playing for keeps. Looking up, he sees Icy flipping through the air, preparing to bring the pain all over again. She comes crashing down like a meteor, shattering the warehouse floor with a single devastating stomp. Du-Ming digs in, barely holding his ground against the powerful shockwave. Landing gracefully, she mocks his defensive posture, calling him out for running and hiding. Icy furiously demands he take her seriously, warning him not to underestimate her just because of her size. But her taunts trigger a breakthrough as Dooming's hand crackles with purple energy. With newfound understanding, he unleashes a powerful counterpunch, finally going on the offensive. He summons his blade, his entire demeanor shifting as he invites her to bring it on. Icy's face lights up with a manic grin, thrilled that he's finally showing his true power. Meanwhile, at a remote ARC facility, an operative is praised for delivering crucial intelligence. A scarred official confirms this is all they have for now, hinting at a larger unfolding plan. The official dismisses Ayla, telling her to go babysit Du Ming and not worry about her sister. Ayla obediently turns and leaves, disappearing into the shadows of the facility. The moment she's gone, the official slams his fist into the wall in a burst of fury. His subordinate is shocked as the leader complains that the situation is spiraling out of control. The tough guy facade crumbles as he sobs about his strained relationship with his daughter, Ayla. Meanwhile, the training battle rages on, with Du Ming and Icy surrounded by destruction. Icy nimbly dodges a massive energy slash that tears through the air, but her eyes go wide as she realizes her opponent has completely vanished. In a flash, Du Ming appears directly behind her, his weapon poised for a perfect strike. Icy whips around in shock, realizing she's been completely outmaneuvered by the rookie. But Icy's counterattack is just as fierce, her energy slash tearing through the concrete. The pink blade carves through the warehouse, a clear message that she's not holding back. Her fairy Sylph is thrilled, declaring Du Ming a worthy opponent for her master. Sylph then turns her attention to Vitus, her curiosity piqued by the unfamiliar fairy. She calls Vitus a fake product, guessing she was created near the end of the war. Vitus remains completely unfazed by the pint-sized fairy's taunts. Sylph proudly explains her own origins as a failed replication of the queen. Vitus simply confirms Sylph's theory about her origins, playing along with the charade. The little fairy puffs up with pride, completely oblivious to the legendary figure standing before her. Meanwhile, the battle intensifies as Du Ming and Icy clash in a devastating mid-air duel. Their weapons collide in a blinding flash of pink and purple energy. Du Ming is blown back by the sheer force of the impact, struggling to regain his footing. He lands hard, his expression hardening as he braces for the next assault. Icy stands her ground, revealing her weapon is a massive, glowing pink scythe. Du Ming stares in surprise, not expecting her to wield such a formidable weapon. She smirks, mockingly asking if he's shocked by her choice of armament. He admits he expected her to fight like Ayla, with a dual-wielding style. Icy scoffs at the comparison, her scythe humming with impatient energy. She declares she's nothing like her sister and prepares to give him a taste of her true power. With a wild grin, she lunges forward, ready to restart their brutal training session. Du Ming grips his crystalline blade, a cold resolve hardening in his eyes. But Icy charges past him in a blur, completely catching him off guard. Her epic attack ends in an equally epic faceplant, sending her scythe flying. The pint-sized terror bursts into tears, wailing over a sudden nosebleed. From the dust, a new figure emerges, scolding Icy for making too much noise. Icy's tantrum freezes as she recognizes the imposing newcomer. Her big sister Ayla has arrived, looking thoroughly unimpressed. Meanwhile, Du Ming admires his new weapon, deciding the big sword really suits him. The bickering siblings finally get his attention, as he realizes who just crashed their party. Ayla's cold stare cuts through the chaos, promising a serious lecture is on the way. Ayla's cold demeanor melts away as she squeals with delight at seeing her little sister. But Icy is less than thrilled, her face a mask of pure annoyance at the sudden reunion. Du Ming can only watch in abject terror, caught in the crossfire of a family drama. Ayla pulls her sister into a bone-crushing hug, leaving the pint-sized warrior gasping for air. The older sister teases her about a growth spurt, which Icy furiously denies. Du Ming's brain short-circuits, wondering where his stoic, professional mentor has gone. Even Ayla's fairy joins the reunion, greeting her pink-haired counterpart with a cheerful cry. But Sylph is having none of it, silencing her sister with a firm hand to the face. While the humans bicker, Sylph decides to introduce their new little sis to the family. She proudly presents the Queen of Thorns, completely oblivious to Vitus's regal and unimpressed glare. Ayla's fairy has a complete meltdown, screaming for her big sister. Sylph tries to school the queen on fairy-host relationships, completely ignoring her sister's panic. Icy complains to Ayla that Du Ming's fighting style is far too advanced for a rookie. Ayla just smiles knowingly, chalking his rapid progress up to raw talent. Du Ming overhears their conversation, looking completely baffled by the compliment. His mentor turns to him, relieved that he's recovered so well from his ordeal. He gives a small, determined smile, agreeing that life has to move forward. Ayla announces their destructive training session is over and it's time for school. The sisters continue their bickering, their chibi forms arguing in the sky as they depart. At school, students gossip about a mysterious second explosion at the northern warehouse. Dooming overhears his classmates dismissing his life-or-death battle as a simple gas explosion. A new transfer student with familiar blue eyes watches him, sensing his inner turmoil. She correctly guesses the recent trauma is taking a heavy toll on his mind. But the serious mood is shattered by a clumsy classmate taking a spectacular tumble. The girl gets a sharp scolding for running in the classroom. The transfer student sighs, telling the bickering girls to knock it off. As she reaches for a fallen book, a classmate's hand gets there first. She looks up in surprise, not expecting the sudden act of kindness. The boy hands her the book, casually revealing the new student is actually Ayla in disguise. He offers a charming smile, completely unaware he's just helped a top-secret agent. Ayla's disguise is so perfect the helpful student has no idea who he's talking to. Dooming watches the exchange, wondering what this guy's angle is with the new girl. His friend interrupts, asking why their usual teacher, Miss Kai, is running late. Just then, the telltale click of high heels echoes down the hallway. Dooming's head snaps up, recognizing the sound of their approaching teacher. The classroom door slides open with a dramatic flourish, revealing a figure in a hurry. A flustered woman bursts in, offering a breathless apology for her tardiness. But his friend's eyes go wide, recognizing her as the woman who was robbed the day before. A flashback confirms it's the same person Dooming saved from the purse snatcher. Dooming stares in disbelief, realizing this random encounter was a calculated setup. She introduces herself as Miss Uman, the new substitute taking over the class. The male students are instantly smitten, suddenly declaring their newfound love for school. Ayla, however, is not fooled, her sharp eyes immediately pegging the newcomer as a threat. The new teacher's eyes widen in surprise, her cheerful facade faltering for just a moment. Unaware of the tension, the rest of the class continues to fawn over their beautiful new instructor. Dooming remains stone-faced, completely unimpressed by the classroom's sudden excitement. Miss Uman's smile is a little too knowing, as she points out the familiar faces in her class. After a surprisingly normal lesson, the school day finally comes to an end. As they leave, Dooming admits to himself he never expected to see her in a classroom. Ayla turns to him, her sharp gaze demanding to know if he's met this woman before. Dooming casually admits he only met the new teacher yesterday. His friend voices his suspicions just as a familiar voice calls out Dooming's name. Both he and Ayla snap to attention, caught completely off guard by the interruption. The new teacher approaches with a suspiciously sweet smile, confirming his identity. Dooming can only stare, surprised to see Miss U seeking him out so directly. She gushes about their coincidental meeting, eager to thank him for his heroics. Ayla's eyes narrow as the teacher offers to buy Dooming lunch, a gesture he quickly refuses. But Miss Uman insists, putting Ayla on edge with her pushy kindness. The teacher finally notices the disguised agent, asking who this beautiful girl is. With a cold stare, Ayla steps in, firmly declaring she's his cousin. Miss Uman's smile widens as she invites the cousin to join their little lunch date. She then turns to his friend, feigning ignorance as she asks for his name. Dooming is stunned she's forgotten, but the teacher just laughs it off with a flimsy apology. His friend grumbles, annoyed that the new teacher only has eyes for Dooming. Later, the group enjoys a meal without their new teacher, his friend completely stuffed. Ayla asks about his plans for the long vacation, to which he gives a one-word answer: games. His buddy immediately starts teasing, asking if he'll be playing with his romantic partner. A flustered Dooming can only blush, begging his friend to drop the subject. But Ayla's sharp glare shows she's taking this line of questioning very seriously. Their teacher suddenly chimes in with a new plan, suggesting a group camping trip by the sea. Dooming's friend is instantly on board with the camping trip, eagerly asking for his opinion. But Dooming immediately shuts down the idea, his quiet apology a clear no. Ayla abruptly excuses herself, her polite words barely hiding her urgent need to leave. The teacher is caught off guard by the sudden exit, her cheerful mask slipping for a second. His friend wonders about her strange behavior, but Dooming just brushes it off with a lame excuse. Outside, Ayla makes a call, her instincts screaming that the new teacher is a serious threat. But her covert operation is interrupted by a familiar voice calling her name. It's Lu Kun, the charming classmate who helped her earlier, looking for another chance to talk. He offers a friendly smile, asking the new transfer student what he can do for her. With a nervous blush, he finally musters the courage to ask Ayla out for coffee. Ayla politely shuts him down, claiming she doesn't drink coffee, much to his surprise. The poor guy is absolutely crushed, his romantic ambitions crumbling in an instant. The scene cuts to the beach trip, with Icy gleefully sprinting along the shoreline. While the girls play in the water, Du-ming's friend attempts to absorb the planet's energy through his face. Du-ming is snapped out of his daze as a familiar voice calls his name. It's Miss Uman, striking a pose and asking for a little help with her sunscreen. He's immediately flustered, realizing this is less of a request and more of a test. She plays the damsel in distress, holding up the bottle and claiming she just can't reach her back. With a sly smile and a bit of flirty persuasion, she finally gets him to agree. But our hero is immediately stumped by his first challenge, the sunscreen bottle. With a single squeeze, the sunscreen bottle explodes in a geyser of white goo. Du-ming panics, completely failing to control the slippery situation. The lotion splatters all over Miss Oman, who feigns shock at his clumsy attempt. He immediately apologizes, his beach day turning into a total disaster. She calmly reassures him, but his frantic explanation only makes things more awkward. He continues to wrestle the bottle, completely unaware of the chaos he's causing. But a familiar, angry voice cuts through the air, demanding to know what he's up to. Ayla descends from the heavens like a tiny, furious missile, ready to crash the party. She unleashes her signature spinning head tornado, turning the peaceful beach into a disaster zone. The teacher is caught directly in the whirlwind's path, letting out a startled scream. Du-ming and Icy are buried up to their necks in sand, screaming from the sandy fallout. Miss Uman emerges from the chaos, scolding Icy for messing around yet again. Still stuck in the sand, Du-ming's mind is a scrambled mess of pure confusion. Icy immediately plays the victim, crying fake tears and accusing Du-ming of being cruel. The teacher instantly buys the act, rushing to defend the pint-sized manipulator. Du-ming furiously denies the claims, completely unaware of Icy's triumphant smirk. He points out she's not even crying as she gleefully runs to her big sis, Miss Uman. But as she runs, her foot discreetly crushes a tiny blue device hidden in the sand. Du-ming's eyes widen in shock, having caught the subtle but deliberate act. Miss Uman is also taken by surprise, her cheerful facade faltering as she processes the move. Miss Uman stumbles, falling right into a very surprised Du-ming. Their accidental collision sends them both tumbling to the ground with a thud. Icy can only watch in wide-eyed horror as the scene unfolds. Du-ming stares down in shock, realizing the incredibly awkward position he's landed in. The flustered teacher finds herself pinned beneath him on the sand. His brain completely short-circuits, unable to process the embarrassing situation. With a panicked apology, Miss Uman sends him flying with a single powerful punch. Lying defeated in the sand, Du-ming wonders how his day went so completely off the rails. As night falls, his friends say their goodbyes, leaving him to recover from the chaos. But a shadowy figure watches the house from a distance, a single cough breaking the silence. Vetus's urgent warning jolts Du-ming awake. A powerful fairy has sent him a sinister invitation. He immediately bolts from the house, racing through the moonlit woods to meet his new challenger. Du-ming stops in a clearing, demanding his stalker finally show their face. A lone silhouette appears in the distance, a silent answer to his challenge. The mysterious figure steps into the moonlight, their face obscured by bandages. With a quiet command, the stranger tells Du-ming to follow him. The figure adds a chilling ultimatum, threatening the lives of Du-ming's friends. As Du-ming weighs his options, he covertly sends a message for backup. The night air crackles with unseen energy as the confrontation reaches its boiling point. Suddenly, Du-ming is yanked into the air, pulled helplessly towards a looming tower in the distance. He finds himself trapped in a strange dimension, crackling with unfamiliar energy. Looking up, he sees his kidnapper perched atop a lonely tower under a crescent moon. A mysterious swordsman with a cold, deadly gaze reveals himself as the new challenger. Du-ming calls for intel, but Vetus reports her systems are damaged and completely offline. A flash of red in the swordsman's eye signals the deadly start of their battle. The stranger lunges with blinding speed, giving Du-ming absolutely no time to react. But a flash of pink and blue energy intercepts the attack just in the nick of time. Ayla and Icy drop from the sky, landing protectively in front of their rookie. Back in her combat gear, Ayla immediately checks to see if he's been injured. The sisters stand ready for a fight, forming a defensive line against the silent swordsman. Ayla is relieved he called for backup, as Du-ming senses the opponent's strange and powerful aura. She reveals he's one of the top fairy emissaries, a legendary figure known as one of the 7 deadly sins. The swordsman's name is revealed, Ao Man Shen Fei, a warrior with a chilling presence. Dooming realizes the swordsman's intense killing intent was aimed squarely at him from the start. Ayla's eyes blaze with fury as she demands to know why he's targeting her rookie. Shenfei coldly brushes her off, telling her to mind her own business. Icy is absolutely furious at his dismissive and arrogant tone. The swordsman unleashes a terrifying attack, a massive heart of dark energy that engulfs the battlefield. Dooming grits his teeth, realizing this new opponent's technique is on a completely different level. Shenfei appears before him in an instant, challenging him to a one-on-one duel. Dooming instinctively materializes a blade of pure energy to block the deadly strike. His eyes widen in shock, completely surprised by his own newfound ability. But Shenfei's expression remains cold, utterly unimpressed by the rookie's desperate defense. Ayla watches in horror, realizing this new enemy's power far surpasses her own. Dooming strains against the immense pressure, his face a mask of pure effort. The swordsman scoffs, casually remarking that such a weak attack is a waste of his time. Ayla screams for Dooming to escape, knowing he's completely outmatched. His opponent suddenly vanishes, leaving Dooming alone in the eerie silence. In a flash, Shenfei reappears, his new target now the completely defenseless Ayla. He unleashes a vicious strike, his curved blade slicing through the air with deadly intent. But Ayla meets his blade with her own, stopping the deadly assault in its tracks. His eyes narrow with cold amusement as he asks if she really wants to fight him. Dooming and Icy can only watch in horror, completely powerless to intervene. Ayla's eyes burn with defiance, refusing to back down from the impossible challenge. Her hand tightens on her hilt, her resolve hardening for the battle to come. With a single effortless move, Shenfei shatters her blade and sends her reeling. Ayla is thrown backward, completely overwhelmed by his devastating power. Dooming screams her name, his voice raw with terror as he watches her fall. He summons his own weapon and sprints forward, desperate to reach her in time. He catches her just before she hits the ground, cradling her limp form in his arms. Dooming desperately tries to rouse his fallen mentor as Icy cries out for her sister. He holds the injured Ayla, her pained groans fueling his growing despair. Icy can only watch through tears, her heart breaking at the sight of her defeated sister. The swordsman coldly asks if this is finally enough motivation for Dooming to fight seriously. A low growl escapes Dooming's lips as pure, unadulterated rage begins to boil over. His body erupts with a terrifying purple aura, his focus locked on his smug opponent. With eyes glowing red, he unleashes a furious roar, promising to end the swordsman. A colossal phantom beast of pure energy materializes above him, its power shaking the very dimension. For the first time, Shenfei's cold composure cracks, completely shocked by the rookie's hidden power. Dooming creates two perfect copies of himself, all three lunging forward with a new space-bending technique. The rookie and the master clash, rage meeting cold indifference in a blur of motion. Their battle sends a devastating shockwave that rips through the very foundations of the tower. Dooming becomes a phantom of pure energy, his movements too fast for the naked eye. But Shenfei remains unimpressed, dismissing the rookie's raw power as clumsy and unfocused. Fueled by pure rage, Dooming unleashes another wild, uncontrolled assault. The swordsman's calm facade finally cracks as a massive energy fist materializes before him. Dooming continues his relentless attack, a purple comet of pure destructive force. He crashes back to Earth with the force of a meteor, his rage reshaping the battlefield. The resulting explosion sends debris flying, a testament to his newfound terrifying power. Icy watches the chaos unfold, cradling her injured sister and calling out his name in desperation. Dooming stands amidst the destruction, his rage-fueled power still crackling around him. He roars at his opponent, demanding to know if that's the best a legend can do. Across the battlefield, Shenfei catches his breath, clearly feeling the rookie's raw power. With a grim acceptance, the swordsman tightens his grip, ready to end this little game. His eye glows with a menacing red light as he promises to deliver the fight Dooming is begging for. Shenfei unleashes his own terrifying power, a crimson wave of pure destruction. Dooming braces himself, refusing to back down against the overwhelming tide of energy. The massive red slash carves through the dimension, threatening to erase everything in its path. Dooming's eyes narrow in concentration, his mind racing to find a way to survive. But it's Shenfei's eyes that widen in disbelief, completely stunned by the rookie's next move. Dooming's eyes widen in terror, his rage-fueled confidence completely shattered. The battlefield vanishes, leaving him standing alone under a blood-red sky.